Picture this. It's 2 a.m., pitch black, middle of nowhere. Your nearest neighbor is 6 miles away. There's no phone, no police, no one coming. A noise just came from outside your door and you are the only thing standing between your family and whatever is out there. That was Tuesday for a frontier family in 1870. What's going on? Everyone, welcome back. Today we're going back over 150 years to the American frontier, where homesteaders carved out lives in the most unforgiving conditions imaginable. No running water, no electricity, and absolutely no law enforcement anywhere near them. And here's what blows my mind: these weren't soldiers or survivalists. They were farmers, mothers, carpenters, and blacksmiths. Regular people who figured out through hard-won experience how to protect everything they'd built from scratch. Some of these tricks are ingenious. Some of them are surprisingly simple. And honestly, a few of them are still useful today. Let's get into it. Trick number 1, the noise perimeter. Long before anyone ever heard the word alarm system, frontier families were building their own version using nothing but tin cans, wire, and rocks. They would string a line of cans filled with small stones or dried beans around the outer edges of their property, low to the ground, strung between fence posts or tree stumps. Anyone walking through in the dark would kick the line and set off a rattle loud enough to wake the whole household. Simple, cheap, effective, and honestly, a lot harder to defeat than people assume, because you can't see a wire in the dark at ankle height. Trick number 2, dogs with purpose. Every serious homestead had at least one dog, but not just for companionship. Frontier families specifically chose and trained dogs that had both a loud bark and a strong territorial instinct. The dog slept near the door, not for warmth, as a warning system. A dog's hearing picks up movement a full 30 seconds before a human would, which on the frontier meant the difference between being caught off guard and having time to grab your rifle and get to the window. Some families kept 2 dogs, one inside, one outside, so that even if someone tried to silence the outdoor dog, the indoor one would still raise the alarm. Trick number 3, layered door security. You might assume a heavy wooden bar across the door was enough. And yes, that was the first layer, but frontier families often added a second and third layer on top of that. Some drove iron spikes or nailed diagonally through the door frame so that the door itself couldn't be lifted off its leather hinges from the outside. Others packed the lower half of their door with strips of buffalo hide to resist being kicked in. That material absorbs impact in a way that straight timber doesn't. And here's one I love. They'd leave a heavy piece of furniture pressed against the inside of the door every night. Also locked the door as extra protection, but still a lock can be picked. But a 200-pound oak dresser cannot. All right, we're just getting warmed up, because what's coming next is where it gets really interesting. We're about to get into how frontier women ran the home defense when the men were out in the fields, a signaling system that could call for help across 5 miles of open land, and one trick involving a simple household item that I genuinely cannot believe more people don't know about. Stay with me. Trick number 4, window strategy. Most people don't think about windows as a security feature, but frontier builders absolutely did. On the ground floor, windows were kept deliberately small and positioned high on the wall, just wide enough to let in light and air, but not wide enough for a grown person to climb through. On the upper level, in homes that had one, windows were larger because they were used for something specific: shooting positions. A person on the second floor has a clear sight line across the entire property. Frontier families called these gun ports or watch windows, and they'd know exactly which window covered which angle of approach. Trick number 5, the bell or mirror signal system. Here's where it gets clever. Frontier communities might have been spread far apart, but they weren't completely isolated from each other. They built communication networks using bells, mirrors, and smoke. A large iron bell mounted on a post was the standard. 3 rings meant come quick. 1 long ring meant fire. 2 short rings meant everything is fine, just checking in. But mirrors were even more impressive. On clear days, families used polished metal mirrors, sometimes just the back of a tin pan, to flash signals across miles of open prairie using reflected sunlight. A system like this could relay a distress call across 5 miles in under 2 minutes. No electricity, no wires. Trick number 6. Women as the primary defenders. This one's important, and it doesn't get talked about enough. On the frontier, men were often out in the fields, at market, or on a cattle drive for days or weeks at a time. That meant women were regularly the sole protectors of the homestead, and frontier women were prepared for it. They were trained to shoot. They knew the layout of the property's defensive weak points. They knew which neighbors to signal and how. Many kept a loaded rifle mounted above the front door, within reach of an adult but out of reach of small children. There are documented accounts of frontier women defending their homes single-handed against groups of raiders, holding their ground until help arrived or the threat backed down. These weren't exceptions. This was expected. Trick number 7. Livestock as sentinels. Horses and geese. Yes, geese were 2 of the most reliable early warning systems on the frontier. Horses are skittish animals with sharp hearing. A horse that suddenly becomes agitated at night, stamping or vocalizing, almost always means something is out there. Experienced homesteaders learn to read their livestock the way modern people read a security notification on their phone. Geese are even better. They're territorial, they're loud, and they react to movement with an aggression completely out of proportion to their size. The Romans famously used geese to guard the Capitol Hill in 390 BC, and frontier families independently arrived at the same conclusion 2,000 years later. Trick number 8. The hidden room. Some homesteads, not all, but more than you'd think, had a hidden room or crawl space built directly into the structure of the house. Usually accessed through a trapdoor under a rug or behind a false wall panel. This served 2 purposes. It was where children and vulnerable family members could hide during an attack. And it doubled as a secure storage space for food, ammunition, and valuables, things you absolutely did not want raided if the home was breached. Building a hidden space added weeks to the construction of a home, but families considered it worth every hour. Trick number 9. Routine as camouflage. This one's psychological, and it's smart. Frontier families deliberately kept their daily routines unpredictable to anyone watching from the outside. They didn't leave at the same time every morning. They varied which fields they worked and when. Lamplights were moved between windows in the evening, so it was hard to tell from a distance how many people were inside or where they were positioned. The goal was simple. If someone was scoping out your homestead looking for a pattern, looking for the moment you'd be most vulnerable, they wouldn't find one. Trick number 10. Community watch rotations. The final trick, and maybe the most important, had nothing to do with individual homesteads. It was community. Frontier settlements established informal patrol rotations where able-bodied men and women would take turns doing overnight watches on a rotating schedule covering the roads and paths into their cluster of homesteads. If something was spotted, word spread fast. They also established mutual aid agreements. If one family was attacked, every nearby family was obligated to respond. Not optional, not suggested, obligated. The frontier mindset understood that isolated, you were vulnerable. United, you were formidable. What gets me about all of this isn't how different it is from our lives today. It's how similar the underlying thinking is. Layers of security, community networks, early warning systems, knowing your weak points before someone else finds them. These people had none of our technology and every bit of our instinct, and they built something that lasted. If you found this one interesting, I've got a video coming up on how frontier families survived winter without any of the tools we take for granted that one's going to hit different. Subscribe if you haven't already, drop a comment with which trick surprised you most, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.